When the Spurs drafted Victor Wembanyama, it was clear that they had found their franchise player. Wemby has had an incredible rookie season, and if you just looked at his stats, you'd think the Spurs were competing for a playoff spot. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. San Antonio is currently last in the West, and they have the third worst record in the entire league. We know how great Wemby is, but with the team losing so many games, it's reasonable to have questions about the rest of the team. More specifically, is there anyone on the roster that can be a star next to Wemby? Of everyone on the team, Devin Vassell is the most likely player to take on this role. Last year, Vassell signed a 5-year deal that guaranteed him $135 million, signaling that the Spurs believed in him. In today's video, I'm going to break down Devin Vassell's game and predict whether he can be the second best player on a championship team. Before I get into it, make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the season, and your support goes a long way. With all of that being said, let's get into the video. Coming into the league, Devin Vassell was viewed as a 3-and-D prospect. However, there were some who saw lots of offensive potential in his game. Over the past 2 seasons, Vassell has received more opportunities and has gotten the chance to show off his offensive skill set. What stands out the most when I watch him play is how patient he is. Vassell isn't the quickest player, nor does he have an elite handle, but he's good at getting to his spots primarily in the mid-range. He's great at changing pace, using shot fakes, or putting his defender in jail, which gets him nice looks. As a result, Vassell is shooting 51.9% from 8 to 16 feet this season. His poise has also helped him improve as a finisher. This year, Vassell is shooting a career-best 70% from within 3 feet. His previous career high was 67% back in his second season, but his usage wasn't nearly as high back then. In his second year, Vassell averaged just 4.4 drives per game, whereas now he drives 8.7 times per game. He has a larger role, and he's now someone that opposing teams game plan for, which makes his development as a finisher more impressive. When you watch Vassell play, you'll notice that he can finish in a number of different ways. First off, he's a terrific cutter, which bodes well for his pairing with Wemby, who passes well for a big. He also has tremendous length for a guard, which allows him to finish against bigger defenders. Vassell is 6'5", but his 6'10" wingspan makes him much harder to block at the rim. He's able to contort his body or extend his arms, and he has the touch to finish shots that would be too difficult for many players. When he's driving against smaller, quicker defenders, Vassell uses his craftiness to his advantage. He knows how to use his defender's momentum against them, and he can score with either hand. The Spurs rank dead last in 3-point percentage this year, so as they add more shooting, Vassell's effectiveness as a driver will only increase with more spacing. While 3-point shooting has been a struggle for this team, the same can't be said for Devin Vassell individually. He's an effective catch-and-shoot player, which is exactly what you need to surround Wemby with. I've also noticed that he's very deadly as a spot-up shooter in transition. This is extremely valuable given how good Wemby is on defense. As a rookie, Wemby is averaging 1.3 steals and 3.4 blocks in less than 30 minutes per game. Many of these plays lead to runouts for the Spurs, and with Vassell being a deadly transition shooter, he can capitalize off Wemby's defensive plays. As an isolation player, Vassell is solid, but I'm not too worried about that part of his game. The Spurs run the least amount of isolation plays in the league, so Vassell doesn't need to be prime James Harden for this team. On top of that, Wemby is the Spurs' best player, meaning that many of the ISOs they do run will go to him. Vassell doesn't find himself in these situations often, but he can execute when he has to, which is what matters. On the defensive end, Vassell is a solid on-ball defender, but he's shown more flashes defending off the ball. For him to be effective in that role though, the team needs to bring in better defensive players. Right now, the Spurs are way too over-reliant on Wemby's defense. When Wemby is off the court, San Antonio has a defensive rating of 119.8, which would rank last in the league. When he's on the court, the defensive rating is 112.2, which would be 7th best. Vassell can be a positive defender, but he's not an elite defender like Wemby who can make up for his teammates' shortcomings. With a better overall defensive unit, Vassell will fit in just fine and his length will be all the more disruptive. It goes without saying that Vassell is a talented young player, but I do have some concerns. While he's gotten better as a passer, he still has room to grow in that area. There are times where he'll turn it over because he'll make a pass too late or force something that isn't there. There are moments where he'll put up a tough shot when he has an open teammate. His accuracy isn't always there either, as he's overthrown Wemby on multiple occasions. The good news is that Wemby makes life easier for his teammates. Being 7'3" with an 8-foot wingspan, you basically just have to put the ball in his general vicinity for him to finish. He also draws plenty of attention as a roller, which generates open looks on the wings. I don't want to make it seem like Vassell is a bad passer because he's not. As he's become a more threatening scorer, passing lanes have opened up for him and he's shown he can take advantage of what the defense is giving him. Vassell is averaging a career high in assists this year, and with each month, he's averaging more and more assists. More importantly, he's shown flashes of chemistry with Wemby. They still need to get used to playing with one another, but their two-man game is starting to look better. However, if Vassell were to be the bona fide number 2 guy on this team, you need him to take his passing to the next level. Something else he can work on is his pull-up 3. While he's shooting a respectable 34.5% on these shots, the volume isn't too high and his mechanics are very inconsistent. There are many times where Vassell looks rushed or off balance, which results in misses. With a 6'10 wingspan, Vassell can get his shot off cleanly against many players, so I do have hope for him. However, if he doesn't improve those inconsistent mechanics, I fear that he won't become a reliable pull-up shooter from 3, which every elite guard needs to have in their game. Another shot he's been streaky with is his long 2s. Vassell saw his role increase from year 2 to year 3, getting nearly 5 more shots per game. Last season, 15% of his shots were long 2s, and to his credit, he converted on 48.9% of them. However, Vassell only played 38 games last year, so we weren't able to see if he could maintain that percentage over a full 82-game schedule. Unfortunately, that concern has come true, as his percentage has dropped significantly in 2024. 12.7% of Vassell's shots are coming from long 2-point range, but he's only making 33.6% of these shots. That's a really bad percentage, and it's concerning that they're a regular part of his shot diet. I prefer for him to take a few more 3s instead, but as I mentioned, his pull-up 3 isn't super reliable at the moment. With all of that being said, it's hard for me to see Vassell as a clear-cut number 2 option on a contender. While he has some great qualities, he's just a solid ball handler and passer, he doesn't draw many fouls, his shot selection isn't the best, and he's inconsistent on his pull-up 3s. He's only 23, so he still has room to grow. I just think there's too many things he'll need to develop to become a premier offensive player. Even though I don't see him as that number 2 guy, I can still see him being an all-star. Since January 27th, Vassell is averaging an efficient 23 points per game, nearly 5 assists, and just under a steal and block per game as well. These numbers are pretty similar to a prime Chris Middleton, a player Vassell has drawn comparisons to. When I think of the future of this Spurs team, they actually remind me of that Bucks team that won it all in 2021. I could see Wemby being the best player in the world, the team having 2 all-stars on the same tier like Middleton and Holiday, and the team boasting plenty of depth. I see Vassell being one of those all-stars, but the question is, who will the other one be? Maybe the Spurs will acquire that guy through a trade, or maybe they'll get him in this year's draft. If it is through the draft, I'd like to see them take Zachary Riza-Shea. Riza-Shea is a 6'9 wing who's shown plenty of two-way upside. He's shooting 46% from 3 this season, he moves well without the ball, and he's an intelligent, versatile defender. He doesn't seem like someone you would build your franchise around, which is why I'd like him on the Spurs. If this all panned out, Wemby could act as the Giannis of the Spurs, and Vassell and Riza-Shea could act as the Middleton and Holiday of the team. For years, it felt like you had to have a great duo or a big 3 to win a championship, but that's changed in recent years. Since 2019, we've seen the Raptors, Bucks, and Warriors win titles in a different way. That method involved having one superstar and surrounding them with tons of depth. Obviously, these teams had other all-stars, but nobody's calling Kawhi Leonard, Pascal Siakam, and Kyle Lowry a big 3, or calling Steph Curry and Andrew Wiggins an elite duo. So while I don't see Devin Vassell as that stereotypical number 2 guy on a championship team, I can see him being an all-star caliber player on a contender with lots of depth. Anyways, that's going to be all for today's video. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts down in the comments section below. With all of that being said, I'm out, and I'll see you in the next video.